Mr. Rideout,
Here.
Mr. Deeds. Mr. Tibbetts.
Here.
Mrs. Walliser. Mr. Wright.
Congratulations. Thank you for everything you do in a school. You always go above and beyond. You are the smiling face that we see every morning that when the students walk in, when the parents, happy or not happy, walk in, you are the person that really is the face of the high school. You have done a phenomenal job being with us, taking on that role and responsibility. So I thank you for everything you do.
You're welcome.
Because you
Thank you.
truly make a difference. You change the whole front face, the culture of that office, and you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
But with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to
Mr. Pottinger took some of the finer points, but it is. Mrs. Renner is a fantastic focal point of our office. One of the first faces you come in. She's always greeting our parents and families, but more importantly, taking care, I think, of our overall office dynamic, which is so important when you're working with the students. And day in and day out, Lisa is awesome and positive energy and cheeriness and detail-oriented, all of the things that you need your people to be to really help drive forward. And I know that I also wanted to let Mr. Ostrowski speak because Lisa handles our attendance, and that is such a big piece of what's going in there. So I will tee him up as well.
No, I just wanted to add, just to be honest, Lisa's turned into almost a sister that I've never, well, I have a sister, but another sister, I guess you could say. But in all seriousness, she's just a right-hand person to me. If there's nuance to a detail, because we do teach to the whole child here about why a student was absent, is there something going on at home, Lisa is sure to have those details from the parent in that conversation. And just to be serious though, it helps us have better conversations with kids to be able to meet them where they're at. And she just does a great job up front in helping, us stay accountable and keep the kids accountable. So it's been a pleasure to work with her the past 3 years.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we have a certificate here for
Thank
you and a little pen
Thank you.
and also your very own form.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank
You are a wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you.
person,
Thank
a
you.
wonderful staff member.
Thank you.
I thank you for everything you do on a daily basis to keep them in line, to keep the high school operating.
Yeah.
You really do a wonderful job. So
Okay. Thank you.
for
Thank you. Thank you.
Student board representatives. We have one with us.
We have one. All the others, we have 3 that are going to be representing the elementary and the high school. Lauren Stout, Jenna Mariola, and then Quinn Savage. They are coming back as board reps. They all have soccer games tonight, so they are not able to join us. So Kendra, you are stuck doing this all by yourself for the first time, but thank you so much for doing this. She's going to be the intermediate school and middle school representative. Mr. Farina has worked with her, has invited her to take on this special role. So thank you so much. And she joined here this evening with her mom, who's been a strong advocate of the school district, works in education as well, in a parallel opportunity at the BCIU. So Kendra, thanks so much for being here. We're going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Good evening, school board members, administration, teachers, and community members. I'm excited to report that the first few weeks of school at the intermediate and middle school were filled with lots of smiles and excitement. Students were welcomed back with balloons, colorful flags, positive messages, and smiles from teachers and staff. Our first day included a welcome assembly by Mr. Farina and Mrs. Ward. An extended homeroom where we got to know more about our teachers and classmates was provided. There were also fun activities to explore what students will be learning this year in class. In the intermediate school, fourth graders are excited about having a locker and meeting all their new teachers. Fifth graders are excited about their overnight camp experience, which will be at Camp Conrad Reiser from October 9th to the 11th. At middle school, sixth grade students will attend the Wild About Water event on September 20th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at McCountry Memorial Park. Ariana Kohler, the Environmental Education Coordinator for Wildlands Conservancy, is a Brandywine graduate and invited her alma mater to join this free event. The Student Council also has their first fundraiser of the year, selling Joe Corby items. Orders are due September 13th. Delivery and pickup of items is October 18th from 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. in the ISMS cafeteria. Picture Day is scheduled for September 16th. Our middle school sports competitions have begun, so we invite everyone to cheer on our athletes. The ISMS will be also hosting their annual Patriot Day ceremony on September 11th at 2 o'clock in the auditorium. Our Commitment to the Community Award will be given to Adam Scott, a 40-year-old veteran of the Topton Fire Company, for his dedication to serving our local community. Members of the Topton Fire Company, Topton Ambulance, Fleetwood Police, and the National Guard have been invited to the event and will be hosting a Q&A session with students interested in a career or volunteer opportunity in a first responders field. We would like to extend an invitation to any board members who would like to attend. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Nice job.
Well done. You did a great job for the first one. Very well prepared. Excellent job and very well spoken. So you are more than welcome to stay, or you can exit left or behind you in the case may be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right. There's no presentations, correct?
No presentations, no.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Moving on to Board of Directors report. Could I get a motion in a second, please? Motion right now. Floor is yours, Mr. Pottinger.
So a couple items under Board of Directors report this evening. There are the school board meeting minutes from August 12th, and there were two corrections that were noted that Mrs. Hewen had provided to ourselves and the board. So those corrections have been made. Also wanted to review policies. So under item B, these are first reading policies. Numbers 3 to 7 are all policies that are just a refresh. There's no substantive changes to those, but as part of our cyclic process, every 6 years, we like to look at them. So really no major changes to those. The changes that are impactful is number 1 and number 2, which is policy 103 and 104. It's the Title IX policy. It's described as discrimination, harassment. The Title IX rule, as you may or may not know, at the federal level, was recently updated, and that took place August 1st, 2024. With those changes, there's some key substantive changes that impact school districts as well as this policy. So just going through some of those things that are the high level overviews of Title IX. The title has changed to discrimination and harassment, which you see here. Definitions have changed. So when we define sex, which is Title IX policy, focuses in on ensuring that there's non-discrimination for sex-based free education for all students. When we define sex, it now connects to gender identity and expression, as well as interesting pregnancy status. That's now included in Title IX under this ruling. When we look at the definitions that are, the definitions of hostile environment for harassment, it also talks about unwelcomed, sex-based, and objectively offensive, severe, pervasive issues, as well as limits or denies a person's ability to participate in or benefit from the education program or activity. So that's the bigger rule of how do we define a Title IX sexual harassment concern. There also is enhanced reporting requirements. So this is a big change to the rule. Prior to this, the last ruling of a Title IX was 2020, and that really focused in on actually having knowledge of an issue that might be present themselves at Title IX. Now it is responding to allegations. And so there's a shift here of knowledge versus allegations. And then there also is a layered impact to this of we also are responsible for off-campus off-campus activities. So anything that is sex-based conduct with allegations of sex-based conduct that occur off campus, online, or even outside the United States, all connect back and we're responsible for investigating as a Title IX claim
As the school district.
as a school district. Yes.
So if my daughter's on Facebook and so she does something or something is done, she says something or something is said to her, the school district
If
is
it
responsible for
if it impacts the
investigating that.
if it impacts the school environment, yes. The other piece that's connected, the other piece that's connected to this is if there is law enforcement involved and the law enforcement are doing their own investigation, we have to do a parallel investigation. We can't turn it over to law enforcement to do investigation. We still have to go through with our Title IX investigation completely separate and indifferent of the law enforcement, which is, again, a little bit of a change. There is also some new training requirements. We now have to train all our employees on an annual basis. And then those individuals that are Title IX coordinators, Title IX investigators, and or decision makers, our administrative team, we have to do a more in-depth training. And we have done those in the past. We did one in April 2021 after the 2020 release. We had recently at VCIU a training in July. And then we're currently scheduling one with Saxon the Stump to come in and train the administrative team this fall. So there's some pretty significant changes to that. Mr. Pratt and I have been talking about this to make sure that we're in compliance. It is a very, very lengthy policy that's connected to this. I wish I could say it's a nice streamlined policy and it's easy to follow and easy to apply, but what PSBA has put together based off of what the federal law is pretty cumbersome and convoluted, but it's what the recommendation is right now to be able to apply this. So
I have a question. I'm sorry.
okay.
Looking at the hostile environment harassment, one from says sex-based conduct that based on the totality of the circumstances is subjectively and objectively offensive. How is, I mean, maybe it's self-explanatory, or just too dense to realize it. Subjectively, if that is something that said it offends me, it's just on my own whim that I can bring that up, like on a legal basis, or would it affect my child? Does that help?
Yes,
Hey, like I hate your red shirt,
correct.
and that's
Well, you have to remember, I hate my red shirt, though, is not discriminatory in the sense that wearing a red shirt is not protected under any class or anything like that. It's more of being offended by the fact that, whether or not the comments, actions fall into the definitions of what discrimination or harassment would be, not just because of they're wearing a red shirt. You're not protected there's no protections for people wearing red shirts. You still have to do the investigation and determine whether or not the definitions are being met by the actions.
We still have bullying policies, I think.
Correct.
How do those two match up? Or
I'm sorry, what?
bullying.
That's part of the process of evaluating whether or not the actions fall under the bullying policy or fall under these policies, to determine whether or not your Title IX coordinator acts under these policies or acts under another policy, whether it's bullying under that policy or not. It's part of the investigation process. Also, that would be part of the supportive measures that the Title IX coordinator would have to look at in making the determination. We've already had situations where we've had to say that this does not qualify under the new Title IX regulations, but it does follow under other policies of the school district. That's why you need to have that investigation.
Did I hit anything? Did I miss anything else?
I will just bring up one issue that is hitting a lot of discussion in the education field. Many of you have heard of an injunction that was put out from a circuit court that involves out in Kansas, where the court issued an injunction stating that the United States Department of Education cannot enforce the new Title IX regulations. That injunction is only for those states in that jurisdiction, Pennsylvania not being one, as well as in regard to certain school districts that other parties involved in the case belong to. One of those, most notably, is the Moms for Liberty group. If the Moms for Liberty anywhere in the United States, if they have children attending a school district that they could be identified as a school district under the injunction, and therefore at that point in time, the school district will be put on a list. That list has been updated like 3 times already as to the number of school districts out there. All that does is it states that the Department of Education cannot enforce the new Title IX regulations. Doesn't mean that the law is invalid, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. Brandywine is not on that list. And so moving forward, the Department of Education has indicated that they are going to be enforcing the new Title IX regulations for those school districts and states that do not qualify for the injunction. There are other aspects of the the law, which Mr. Pottinger has already touched on, which has to do with the discrimination for pregnancy that the Biden administration tried to have the United States Supreme Court not have as part of the injunction. The Supreme Court upheld the injunction. So we're waiting for the further guidance on this. But if you're not part of that injunction, the recommendation has been that you move forward with the process. I mean, obviously things can change in the next 2 months. And so we are looking, that they're going to be looking as to whether or not your school district is taking the steps to pass the policies, taking the steps to make the training. The one thing that I don't want to make light of is the training. The training used to be just for administrators and your Title IX coordinators. Now it's for all employees, because now all employees are part of the process that they need to know what these regulations are and their responsibility under the regulations. So that's the latest legal update on these 2 policies. Now, granted, I just want to make sure you understand, you had Title IX policies already prior to this. Title IX's been around for a long time. It's just that these modifications are being challenged, and we have to wait to see what the courts state about them.
And I think the only other thing that, as you were talking, made me think about it, if there, and I don't anticipate this happening, but if there is an issue with Title IX that occurred before August 1st date, we have to use the old Title IX procedure. And if it occurred after the August 1st date, then we have to use the new Title IX guidelines and procedures.
Correct.
So again, I don't anticipate it. We've only had a few Title IX investigations since this really took off in 2020. I can think of maybe 3 off the top of my head. So
just understand that the responsibility, you still have to do the investigation, just like you'd had in the past. You'd have to look into it. It's just a difference in different definitions and different processes that have to be followed.
So that is a rather significant one. That is what we want to spend a little bit of time talking about that one. And so you understood the changes that are there and then what's involved in that policy. The second readings are from the August meeting. That's a postgraduate students assignment within the district, and then confidential communications with students. I know Mr. Hefner wanted to speak a little bit on confidential communications with students policy.
I don't know why I didn't see it on the first reading, but I don't know what the second reading here. Let me start over. In qualifying circumstances, the building principal may reveal confidential information to a student's parent or legal guardian and other appropriate authorities, including law enforcement personnel. So that got me to thinking back some time ago, I don't know how many months ago, but Mr. Pratt had informed us that we could not inform the parents of any transgender type of situation, whether it be physical transgender or social transgender situation. We could not do that. But here, it says under qualifying circumstances, I would say that certainly would qualify me as a parent to want to know if my child somehow had related to any of the board or the district people, teachers, administrators, whatever, of their thoughts on this particular subject. We have a social worker now, and I would imagine it might start there, but it could start other places. So I started really thinking, I started digging into it, and I was very pleased with the other articles that we have in the different ones. There are 207. There were 14 places in the first reading and what have you, where they talk about you have to get a parent's signature to take a Tums, to take an aspirin, what have you, to have an EpiPen and administer yourself. There's 14 different places in the other policies there where we are required, or they are required, to have the parents informed and have the parents to allow it. So thought a little bit further. Well, what happens if we run into a situation like that? And I went on the internet, and I want to share this with all of you, so you think I'm not crazy. This is as of August. Where is the date? August 9th, 2014. Could you pass these out here? Hold on a second. And you'll see there, I'm just going to summarize it, but I'd like you to see it. I think there's enough there to go around. If not, here you can have one more. But basically, the headline is Parents Sue Over Teen Social Gender Transition They Say Was Kept from Them. And it goes on in here, and basically, if you read it, you'll see that I think they have a case, because they were sort of aware of what their daughter might be going through here, but the school never coordinated with them or what have you. So they're getting sued. So now I'm saying to myself, well, okay, we have policies, or we don't have policies in place other than this 207 second reading where it says confidential information. Well, I think that's about as confidential as you could expect. And if I was a parent, I would want to know it. So then I did a little bit more investigation, and I found out through my grandson's situation. He's a student here, elementary. And I talked to my daughter-in-law, and she said, well, at the beginning of the year, we have to check off all kinds of things. You know, can he take aspirin? Can he do this? I think there's about 24 or 30 almost items on there. So my next thought is, well, heck, you know, if we just added one more item on there, do you want to be informed of any transgender situation with your child? Yes or no? If the parents want to know and they check yes, I think we're legally responsible and just responsible overall to let them know so that they can do with it what they want. Now, whether or not it's a good parent or a bad parent, as Mr. Pratt had pointed out before, that's not for us to decide. I would like to see that done. And as you get these things around here, if you read them, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm trying to protect the taxpayers, at the same time protect the parents' rights. Because if we get sued, I don't know how much it's going to cost, and nobody in here does. And if there's more than one incident, well, there we have a nice financial situation at hand. So I'd like to ask one question to the board members. If you had a child in school and they were going through something like this, would you want to be informed? Mrs. Hume, would you want to be informed?
Mr. Hefner, I can't imagine a situation as a parent where my child was struggling with identity issues or self-esteem issues or bullying issues or any of those types of things, and I would be oblivious to that. So I can't off the cuff answer your question because I can't fathom being so disconnected from my child and having such a lack of relationship with my child that I would be clueless about the pain about the challenge, about the struggles that they were experiencing in life.
So you would check the no box.
I'm not sure that I would agree that we should have a box at this point. That's what I'm saying. I can't fathom a situation as a parent being so at odds with my child that my child would want to hide something so incredibly painful and powerful in their life from me as their mom. Can't imagine it.
But you could be surprised.
I very well could be.
Okay.
But I'd probably take the side of my child before I took the side of myself.
Mr. Hefner, could we table that portion of the reading and have Mr. Pottinger and Mr. Pratt dig into some wording and
I would appreciate that, and that's where I was headed. I would like to table this here until Mr. Pottinger can get down to tax, brass tax, if you call it that, and see what kind of legal matters we may be up against or what have you. But I certainly think, we owe it to the parents the opportunity, because you can see it in these little hands on there. They were sort of involved in that, but they still didn't get the information from the school, and they're suing them.
I think the premise of what you're trying to do is protect the school district
I am.
from suits
I am.
down the road.
That's my number one point. I'm also trying to give the parents an opportunity to take care of their children in their own way if they see fit.
So I have two thoughts. One is if your question, right? So you called me out. I'd be interested if you would be desiring to hear from other board members. But
Yes, I would.
it seems to me that if the question on the table is how do parents feel about this issue, then it seems to me that rather than us assuming we know, why wouldn't we poll parents in the district?
Well, that's
As we put together a policy that impacts their kids so directly.
I don't know if
I would think it would just be a
think
yes or no. If you don't object to it, then just put, or if you don't care, just put no.
Well, I want to be very careful with that because we also have to protect the students as well. So if we just start opening that up to, we have a duty here to protect the students as well. While I hear your concern, there are situations that would not be homes.
But you don't know who those people are. There may not be any of them until one day something comes along.
100%. But what I'm saying is we have to be very careful about opening that up as a referendum, if you will. When
Then you could get sued.
What's that?
Then you could get sued.
To open it up to a referendum.
No. I said if you go ahead, explain that.
I'm saying Mrs. Hume suggested that we open up to get a survey of how parents feel about that policy. So I want to be very careful of that process because there are legal precedents that have been set that we want to make sure we're protecting everyone that is at stake here and not just a certain class or a
I
certain
appreciate
class.
that. I appreciate it. But what I'm trying to point out is our policy 207 now says under qualified circumstance. I would think that was a qualification that a parent would want to know. And it said it could be done now under 207.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is the process of opening it up as far as a survey to say, how do you feel about this? There's
And what
precedents that are-
percentage? And what percentage would say it's okay to ask that question?
I have no idea.
But what we have to. Does it have to be unanimous?
Well, what I'm saying is I'm not suggesting we open it up to a survey. What I'm saying is we turn this over to Mr. Pottinger and Mr. Pratt to do some deep dive into
that's fine.
What precedent is and what language might look like if that's the wish of the board. I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm disagreeing with Mrs. Hume. What I'm saying is I don't think that in this situation it is one like does your child like ham sandwiches or turkey. I don't think that's the survey the route that we need to go with this.
It's very serious.
I think that we have Mr. Pratt and Mr. Pottinger dig into verbiage and other precedences so we can make sure that we're protected as.
Okay, so at that point there, I don't want to be keep going. Lingering in the moment. Let's just ask. I'm just going to ask 207 second reading from tonight's approval list and let Mr. Pottinger and Mr. Pratt get together and formulate something that we think is viable to protect the taxpayers.
I have a couple other comments. I fully agree with tabling it if we're not at all comfortable with the policy and it needs to be vetted further. We have a board policy committee. And to go through this process without engaging the policy chair feels a little bit out of protocol to me. And I would just ask that point in time forward, as Mr. Pottinger and Mr. Pratt work together on this, and if you have strong opinions, let's respect the people that we put on the committees and leverage those committees to do some of that hard work. So that's one point. The other point that I make, Mr. Ragland, to the notion that you said, we also have a responsibility to protect, if you will, our students and to do what's best for them. Can you imagine a situation where a high school senior, 17 years old, if they told their mom and dad that they were interested in these topics, the same way they told the social worker, and they got beaten for admitting that, or they got grounded, or they got, any other form of punishment or disrespect or conflict in the home? Can you imagine that happening? Can you imagine a situation where that might happen to a young person, where their parents totally disagree with their line of thinking or what they're questioning about the world or themselves or their community or their friend group? Take it out of this domain. And let's say you've got a high school student who's in a relationship and is having sex and wants to get birth control. And they go to the school nurse for help. I guess my point is, I can think of probably 15 scenarios, and we could certainly ask our administrators that they've experienced at the high school level, all sorts of sort of uncomfortable, you could deem them crazy or like foreign to us as, people from our generation, all sorts of things that's happening at the high school level where the child needs help and guidance and is seeking it, but does not feel safe getting that help and guidance from their parents. So unsafe that it would be dangerous for them to admit. Like literally dangerous for them, unhealthy and dangerous for them. I'm not sure we're doing that student a service by sharing their quote unquote secret. I don't know the right answer, but I think when we debate this stuff, it probably would behoove us to get some of these examples beyond just the one that this policy specifically mentions. And if we're going to do forms that check off yeses and nos and all that kind of stuff, that we really explore the impact on students and the impact on moms and dads when secrets are held from us and we're doing our damnedest to raise good kids and we're not in the information flow. So there's two sides of it. So I guess I would just encourage us to expand our view beyond just this issue. Especially if we end up with boxes with check forms, yes and no.
I can speak.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted. So my question is it is known, or it has been gone over, that children over the age of 14 have legal capacity to make this decision when it comes to like mental health and reproductive health rights, and they would have to sign off allowing their parents access to that information. Right? So having a checkbox asking the parents if they want to know about this stuff is all well and good, but so like I said, they have the legal capacity to make that decision. That was an act that was passed in the Commonwealth recently. I don't know the exact date. So that's kind of a moot point because we'd have to have, like I said, the student would have to sign off saying, yes, I released this information. Otherwise, it's protected health information and we can't share it anyway.
Yeah, that's and to your point, Mr. Sheets, why I think it's best to have this topic dug into a little bit, not to take it lightly, and
Yeah.
get some precedent and some understanding for all of us where it stands. So
Mr. Pratt has.
Actually, technically, Mr. Sheets, in regard to schools, those provisions that you cited to do not have standing because this would be a school record and only those above the age of 18 or 18 or older have the right. So that's in a different venue that you're referring to. Let me,
Has that been defended in court?
yeah, it has.
Okay.
But you're talking about a different venue outside of schools. Schools have different rules when it comes to access and the ability of a student to waive certain rights of parents. But let me just see if I can't. We are, Saxon Stump has addressed this issue in numerous school districts. We have plenty of outlines. We have plenty of information that I can bring back to the board and have discussions with. We've seen numerous policies dealing with these issues that we'll be more than happy to discuss with you. So with that, we will prepare something for the board to discuss this. I will say one thing in regard to 207, because we've looked into this before. 207 only deals with the health, safety, welfare of the student. The example that Mr. Hefner brings up does not, whether someone wants to change their name, does not fall into the health, safety, welfare. That's a different issue, but also there's discussions we can have about parental rights. We have case law in regard to that as well that I'll be more than happy to share with the board in full as we go forward with this.
I can say for the record that and this might be irrelevant, it's just my personal opinion, but I would certainly want the school district to let me know. And if it's an issue, I would want to be known as a parent 100%. I find it kind of ironic that we're, as a district, possibly not able to share that. But as far as I'm concerned, the Department of Education and Brandywine can overreach and dig into my kids' text messages if something happens online, or Twitter or X, if I understood that correctly. I think that's like juxtaposed. You couldn't be more black and white. Like, you can't tell the parent this, but boy, you can dig into all their private electronic stuff, messages, social media, and that stuff. I think I don't understand how you can be that invasive on one end and pry into that and not tell a parent something about their kid. That's my 2 cents.
So we all in favor of tabling that for Mr. Pratt to prepare something for us to digest and understand the topic.
While we do that, at some point, I'd be interested to hear from the administration and perhaps the social worker or the folks who deal with these issues from time to time in their careers. I would like to believe, I mean, this is what I'm looking for some validation, that any administrator who receives that kind of confidential information from a student that's struggling, I'd like to believe that that administrator would be encouraging that child to share that information on the home front as part of the counseling and the supports that are being provided in the building. I'd be concerned, I'd share your concern if the administrator was saying actively, keep that a secret, Johnny, right? Or keep that a secret, Susie. I would think that we, based on our philosophy here of the value of healthy parent and family interaction in the school community, that our administrative philosophy would be to do our best to help that kid find a safe way to share that kind of information with their family members and parents in particular. And I don't know if you can speak to that just generally or more specifically.
So that is something that we have dealt with in the past and have encouraged working with guidance counselors so that we do make those connections. And it has worked very smoothly in the past where the concerns that are being raised are absolutely valid. And yet we've been able to, through the great interactions that our principals have and the relationships we have with the kids, that we're able to put those things together to support families. And it's worked. The few cases that we've had to work through, it's been very effective.
I'm going to do something here which I may regret or may not. What if a child's being sexually abused by a parent? Would you want them? Would you want
That
to
is
start
addressed in the policy 207. That's the safety and welfare. Also, your professional employees in this school building and throughout your entire school district have a responsibility under the law that if they believe that's going on, that they have to report that immediately. And that's what 207 is getting to. So that's a completely different scenario. There is a statutory responsibility for your professional staff to report those types of things. So that's completely different.
It's something called mandatory reporting. And any staff member that perceives there being an issue, that they have to report that legally.
Okay.
So that is protected.
And they are protected as employees too. That's why it's called mandatory reporting, that if they do report it, even if it's not true, if they believe it's happening based on the conversation with the student, they are protected that someone can't go after them for making that report. So it's something that's an obligation that they're required to do under the statute.
Okay.
We will table C3. We'll reflect on that and bring some information back as discussed. Item D, before I move on, any other policy questions? I hate to ask a question. Okay. Item D is to appoint Miss Haggerty. She is one of our science teachers at the high school as the professional employee to represent the school district in the Berks Health Trust. So the Berks Health Trust is set up that there is a district representative, which is Ms. Del Huerco, and there is a representative from the employee group, which is, in this case, Krista Hager. She's been doing this for several years. It's a 2-year term, and that would expire in 2026. The final piece is great news for the school district. There was an auction held at the adjoining property of the school district currently. It was 0 Freehall Street. It is the land across the street from Dollar General. That went up for auction, and the school district was the winning bidder as a result of Ms. Eisenhart and Mr. Wagaman's swift skills of auctioneering, and we were the winning bid at $95,000. There is a 10% buyer's premium, so that's $9,500. So the total cost is $104,500. That secures that kind of corner. It was really the only open land connected to the school district that had any kind of road frontage. Again, connected to the school district. So this is a great investment for the school district and helps to just secure that corner area there. Next, we'll move on to community reports.
All right, committee reports.
Good evening. The last meeting of the BCIU Board of Directors was held in August. I had mentioned previously that there's no July meeting. It was held August 15th. I submitted the written report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of quick things. One, the BCIU launched a new ADA compliant website, and I don't recall the details of the regulations and the timing of when websites for school districts would have to be ADA compliant, but I don't know. Are we working on that, or is that something that's kind of on our radar, I would imagine?
So our website, we host through Skillshare Apogee. They focus a lot on ADA compliance already. So prior to posting anything on our news or a live feed and any of our pages, it forces you to put alt text and make sure that anything is screen readable by somebody who might be using that assistive technology. There are our school district, because of our population and our size, we actually have 2 more years where we have to be fully compliant with everything. Mrs. Kleinfelter and I attended a legal session at the IU last spring from Mark Waltz, where we went over all of the different guidelines that we will have to comply with. Last spring, we also did a training for our teachers for their teacher pages, because since they're linked on our website is an extension and those also have to be compliant. We still have work to do with that, but there's definitely steps and procedures already put in place that our staff are aware of. We've done a nice job with not only our website, but our social media to make sure that those things are compliant already. But there are other ancillary pieces that it even extends into all of the publications on Google Classroom. So those will be things that we'll be working on over this year and next year with our staff to make sure that we are compliant with.
Helpful. I thought that was important to share. It certainly was not on my radar based on anything that we had previously discussed. So it's good to hear that we're well underway. And interestingly, the BCIU's new ADA compliant website is hosted by this Aptogee. So
Yes. Yeah, they've done a lot of work to make sure everything is up to date and kind of forces the user before you post anything to check those boxes before you go.
great. Thank you. Something else that I thought was noteworthy, we've talked quite a lot in budget meetings and stuff about vehicles and vans and how many do we need and what the status is. So the IU is currently selling 9 passenger vehicles. So I don't know if that was on anybody's radar or if we're in the market for one, but they're trying to liquidate a bunch of buses, both 48 passenger buses and 72 passenger buses, as well as 15 9 passenger vans. So if we don't need them, maybe we want to give a heads up to our transportation provider if they're not aware. 2 other quick things. So the budget, obviously, we approved our budget before the end of June without knowing what the Pennsylvania Commonwealth final budget was. The IU, in my opinion, always does a great job of creating like a 1-pager that summarizes from an education impact perspective what the budget means. And I know in the most recent weekly update, there was some information that Mr. Pottinger shared. I think at least in one area, we were a little bit disappointed that Brandywine personally didn't benefit from the additional funding that became available from the state. But this sheet basically highlights from a public education perspective overall, the Commonwealth budget for this forthcoming year is very favorable in terms of public education. I think there are categories where Brandywine definitely did benefit, maybe not in as many as we had hoped, but overall, very favorably impactful. So the money's flowing, at least this year, from the Commonwealth for public education. So certainly as public education school board members, we should be pleased about that. I have 2 other little things. I imagine, Mr. Pottinger, you and your team already have been given these, but just on the outside chance you haven't, the legislative update, which is crazy thick. But the one that I thought was more actionable is this one that is titled Summary of Key Acts as of mid-July. And these are acts that are impacting schools and IUs. So tons of interesting stuff that I'm sure makes your world very challenging day to day with all the little details. But I have copies of that if you need it. But yeah, that can be for Andrew. And then finally, one little sort of fun or interesting tidbit, talking about policies. The BCIU had struggled a little bit over time with a policy related to service animals. So because they have a lot of special needs students that they deal with, from time to time, they're faced with that decision. How do you handle a service animal? And then how do you encourage service animals in certain programming? So they now have a policy to deal with that. So it's always changing, Mr. Hefner. There's always going to be some wacky thing that we're not used to that we have to deal with. So anyway, that concludes my report. The next meeting of the BCIU Board of Directors is scheduled for a week, Thursday, the 19th. And in Mrs. Walliser's absence, I'll just mention that tomorrow morning is the Committee on Legislative Action, the COLA meeting that's quarterly. So Tuesday, September 10th, and the presenter will be Dr. Sherry Smith, who's the executive director of PASA. You're welcome.
PCTC, Mr. Reitman?
BCTC met August 28th at the East Campus. This year, BCTC is projected to have 2,062 students. This is 110 higher than they ever had. Brandywine makes up 30.4% of BCTC. We are the second highest school to have students going to BCTC of all the schools that participate at BCTC. I am glad to say that the AC is working at the East Campus as of last week. They start the school year without no AC at the East Campus. A couple other things I want to say. This Friday at BCTC East, the culinary arts students are having a bake sales. So anyone interested in getting baked goods, please head out to BCTC East. Also starting Friday the 13th, they will be doing nails, hair, and skincare for the public if anyone's interested in that. Our next meeting is September 25th at the West Campus. Thank you.
BEITC, Mr. Garrico.
Thank you. So we actually did not have a meeting since our last board meeting. So our next scheduled meeting is Thursday, September 26th. I did want to take a moment to follow up to Mrs. Hume's report regarding the state budget. I would say overall, as a state, we were successful in seeing, I think it was a 6% increase over last year. I guess I'll start with the good news. On the not so good news, we as a district actually saw not as much funding as we initially had anticipated. I just want to pull up my notes real quick. So essentially, there was a lot of, we basically had our basic ed, this huge bucket of money, and they came out with these new formulas, the adequacy and tax equity supplement formulas. We actually got $0 from both, and which is kind of heartbreaking. We as a district, and then also the Ready to Learn, we essentially were not eligible for any of the additional funds other than that base. I think it's $262,000 that we get annually that we've never seen an increase on. Kind of some of the factors, again, it's really the poverty, but the biggest factor, and kind of talking with Mr. Pottinger, that was unfortunate for us is, I would say we almost, I don't want to say punished, but we almost got penalized for not taxing locally more than we do. I would say we as a board and we as an administration always pride ourselves on having low tax increases. I think it's been 1.1% over the last, 10, 12 years. So what they refer to as local effort rate is really low for us as a district. So essentially they, in the eyes of the state, they thought, well, if we're not taxing locally, we must not need money. So we actually did not get any money from any of these new formulas. So basically the new funding model actually hurt us as a district. So really just something like you'll see the papers, the state's giving out all this money to schools, kind of just, that short informational, like when you're talking to people in the community. Unfortunately, it did hurt us as a district. So just something to, be aware of. That.
To clarify, when you say it hurt us as a district, net, we did not lose money.
So we still correct.
We gained more money than we had last year or in prior years. It's just the expectations we had were higher than what was delivered. But in terms of clarifying the message, I think it would be inappropriate to say this budget hurt us. It did not hurt us. We might not have gotten the 6% that some other districts got, or maybe they got even more than average. We got less than what we expected, and perhaps less than what we feel is our fair share. But we still got more than we had last year from the state.
So yes and no. We got more than we got last year. But if you take the amount of money that the state gave out, the $47.6 million, run it through the old formula, we would have gotten a lot more money, is what I'm saying. So this new formula hurt us. So just different factors, obviously different methods of calculating it, but really that's this did not benefit us as a district, this new formula.
I think it's important for the board to understand the soundbite is they added a layer of the taxation. Because you as a board have been so conservative and been mindful of our tax base, we've got penalized for that. And I think that's, for me, that's a big soundbite.
My message would be it's neither fair nor equitable to us.
Very true.
Another way to say it.
Very true.
And I think the other one, the charter school reimbursement, I know we do a really nice job. Mrs. Honich does a really nice job of ensuring that, you know, if kid goes to a charter school, we really reach out and try to work with the families to bring them back. So essentially, the number of kids that we have in charter school relative to the whole state, that percentage is very low. So that pot of money where we essentially are sharing as 502 districts statewide, we're getting a very small amount. That's yet to be determined. I think it's probably going to be around $40,000, which is to educate one special ed kid. So that's just some information on top of what you had noted.
So in other words, if our academic capabilities were higher in other schools, we would be penalized so that the other districts with a lower academic output could have more money to improve. One way of looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know how much really the educational piece had to do with it,
But that's why.
but but yeah, learn something every day. Things change, so.
Thank you.
Nothing to report this month.
Floor is still yours.
Negotiations, we did meet with Bahia before school started and a week into school, and we will be coming to a conclusion hopefully soon.
And not too many updates since last time. The one significant piece would be is tomorrow there's going to be a meeting with Schlau, who's going to be our general contractor. They're meeting with the Berks Conservation District as well as some administrators to start the process. Their hope is this fall to do the construction of the throwing events as well as the construction of the softball field. And then the next step will be to get the permitting for the turf field, which will allow the turf field and the track to be built when that amendment to the DEP permit goes through. So that's the meeting tomorrow, and more to come based off of that outcome.
Have they already approached the conservation?
That's tomorrow. That's gonna be Berks Conservation District's gonna be there.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschel?
No.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. For the business and operations report, we actually have a rather short agenda, but going through it, if we start with item A, we have the general fund bills totaling $512,988.83. Food service fund, we're back to the normal purchasing for the school year operations, totaling $11,734.70. Item C, construction fund, we have bills totaling $25,938.60. Item D, we have capital reserve fund, bills totaling $83,526.13. Item E, these are the financial reports through June 30th. Just a quick comment there, these are pre-audit. These are really on a cash basis as we're transitioning over to the modified accrual basis, so these numbers will change between now and the audit in November. And then move into section F. F1. We're asking you to approve a 1-year agreement with General Healthcare Resources, LLC, also known as GHR, out of Bluebell to provide nursing services as needed and as attached, subject to solicitor review. Essentially, this is just like an ESS, SOS. It's a third-party staffing agency that really specializes in nurses. We do have one nurse that actually works with a former retiree, works with STS and also GHR. But there's a greater availability if you allow us as a district to use GHR for substitute nurses. Item 2 is to ratify an affiliation for a high school counselor internship experience with New York University during the 2024-25 school year as attached. Item G, we have nothing under curriculum and technology. Moving on to H, facilities and maintenance. First one is to ratify a change order with Bertolet Construction related to the intermediate middle school sports viewing plaza totaling $5,000 as per business H1. This is to add 500 square feet back into the viewing plaza as the RFP originally stated. Item 2, to ratify the change order with TK Elevator related to the intermediate middle school elevator upgrades totaling $9,898 as attached. Basically, along the way, when we had initially planned this elevator upgrade to the new, essentially the end product, once they got in there and looked at everything, there was some additional needs that needed to occur from a conduit standpoint and also to make it compatible with our card reader systems.
This will allow us, if there's a student on crutches or needs the elevator, they'll have a card access and be able to buzz the door, and that'll allow them to get access to the elevator instead of having a key and then we can turn it off and control it a lot better.
So the next one is item 3, to approve the changes outlined in the drawing number 8 SP6 and outlined below into the contract with Schlau related to the general contractor responsibilities for the 400-meter track and athletic field project that is set to start at the high school. The changes essentially include paving and sidewalk additions, really between the field itself and the existing paving and where the bleachers are and kind of that plaza area. There's really just this like square area of grass. I think from a maintenance standpoint, it would be hard to mow, and also just there was conversations about like the mud and really just the accessibility. It just kind of looked a little awkward, and from a user standpoint, there was a lot of potential issues that we foresaw. So we'll kind of clean that up from the original scope of the work and into transition into the new scope. Item 4 is to approve the installation of a fence for the elementary pre-K playground at a cost of $6,780 by Rocky Ridge Fencing. They are the ones that are also doing the fencing here at the intermediate middle school. They actually notified Mr. Molatoris today that they can start the fencing for the pre-K playground next week. So that's exciting news for the kiddos over at the elementary school. And again, this is really to create that playground for the pre-K kids exclusively. They do get playground equipment is on the way as part of the pre-K counts grant.
There was a fencing there previously, but when we did the oil tank removal, it was old fencing. So we pulled that fencing out because they had to get access to remove the oil tank. And so it just made sense to upgrade at the time. So we just pulled it all out.
Item F number 2, as I read through that, I noticed that a Mr. Thomas Walker has been designated as facility contact today, 10-318. Is he still available?
No,
So
he is not.
do you want to take that one?
You can.
So that document is from 2018. And Mrs. Huhn had asked the same question. It's an old document. It still kind of lives. It was assigned in 2018. We now have a new intern. And so we wanted to put that on the board agenda again, just to make sure that as a board, you knew that we were having another intern. But that document, basically, that agreement between the organization and Brandywine.
Tom's not coming back.
Tom's not coming back. No, to answer your question, no.
That's all.
So while we're on that particular item, can you just so you just told us we're having another intern. Can you expand on that a little bit? So it seems a little funny that we're getting back in 2018, an intern from NYU, and now in 2024, an intern for a high school counselor from NYU. Like there's a backstory here that's not been told.
Sure. I can't speak to 2018 because I was not in the capacity then, but this is a student who's from the area who is doing their coursework through NYU. So it would make more sense for them to do their internship in this area. So that's why they had reached out, looked to do the internship here at Brandywine Heights, and working with Ms. Usella, Mr. Jinch, and the high school team. It looked like it would be a good fit through the candidate, what they could offer to the school. And typically, as Mr. Pottinger has said, we do primarily Kutztown University or Millersville as these internships, and those agreements basically continue till they are, we say we don't want to continue this anymore, right? And we have them every year. So it's not uncommon for us to see someone from Kutztown or Millersville in our schools. However, being that the last time we had a student in from New York University was 2018, which is over 6 school years ago, I wanted to say, yes, this agreement is still in place and just a re-ratification of that.
And it's an unpaid internship.
Correct. Typically, before someone would be certified as a school counselor, they do go through a full year unpaid internship experience where they're working at multiple levels of education and seeing what that school counselor role is all about. So it's pretty similar to student teaching. It's kind of that capstone experience for a school counselor.
Thank you.
So any other questions?
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenfeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Ham?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
So only 3 items on the superintendent report this evening. We have the approval of 5th grade camp for 85 students this year. There'll be 20 high school students that come along as camp counselors and then 10 teacher chaperones. This year, we're looking to do it from October 9th to the 11th in similar locations we've done over the past several years at Camp Conrad Weiser. Great experience. If you ever want to know more about it, please let me know, but it is a phenomenal opportunity. The students stay over 2 nights and it gives them a full experience of nature as well as learning opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have in a classroom. So love this event. Every year try to get up there and see the students, and huge thanks to all our staff for continuing to do that every year, taking time away from their families to spend the night and providing this opportunity to our kids. It is definitely they give up a lot to do this, but they see the value in it as well. Love that we can continue this tradition. Item B is to approve the second reading of the K-12 science curriculum. This is honestly was on the agenda in June and got missed as a carryover to get second approval in August. So our apologies for that, but we're asking for second approval of the reading for that science curriculum. And finally, we have the approval of the club for FFA, Future Farmers of America, as a student activity club in the high school. We have a new program, obviously, the ag program. Mrs. Paige Sheeler is the advisor for that, and this is to have officially established the FFA for the school district. So that's what we're asking for tonight. Under enrollment report, I thought I'd just spend a few minutes here going through that document. So if we look at where we were last year in June, we had 1,227 students. Right now, for the September board meeting, we have 1,220. So we're only down 7, which is really good news because we had 115 graduating seniors last year. We only have 83 kindergartners. So that delta is a lot more than just the 7 kids that were short for the entire school population. So a lot of move-ins that happened, move-ins that occurred throughout the course of the summer. There are 120 12th graders this year. This is our largest class and it is our graduating class. Right now, free and reduced lunch, when we evaluate poverty, is pretty much exactly what it was when we ended in June. we ended at 36.74%, and we're at 36.36 right now. So very, very similar. We'll continue to monitor this. October really becomes our official snapshot of enrollment. That's what we have to provide the state for enrollment for the year. We do a big report, and so if there's any major fluctuations, I'll point that out at the October board meeting. But this is a good time. This is probably a good report of kind of the dust settles. August, it's kind of up in the air. Yep, this is a pretty good report of where we are now for the year.
Just a quick additional identification note. You mentioned free and reduced lunch. I also see a clear pattern in the lower grades where those percentages are higher. Yeah, so I don't know if that's typical, but I think from my memory that that's not necessarily the case. In other words, what that says to me is that the newer kids coming into the elementary excuse me, may in fact be more economically disadvantaged than our historic population.
So we actually would typically see our younger students be at the higher levels of poverty. The interesting piece for me is actually that our high school is so high that we have in ninth grade 46.6%. That's significantly high, and comparatively to where we have been. Overall, as a high school, it's 37.87%. So that's a pretty high number. Actually, our intermediate is the lowest at combined at 29%. So it's interesting to see the dynamics play out. That poverty is carrying through, which is the shift.
And we have one grade that's over 50%. 1 out of every 2 kids is economically disadvantaged in a serious way.
And I would say, just from a standpoint, from my lens, as far as from the food service piece, just kind of telling that story from the poverty lens, the lower grades, they tend to be younger parents. They're just starting out their career. I mean, you're always going to have that baseline level of poverty in our district, which I think is growing. But also just in general, like they tend to be younger parents getting out, starting their career. And as those kids get older, obviously they have more years experience in their roles and tend to make a little bit more. So I think you kind of have 2 things going on there.
And I would just like to add to that again, thanking the board for this. We look at a lot of the initiatives that we've put in place over the last few years. The Bullet Academy, our Birth to 5 program, that's aimed at getting resources in the hands of those younger families where we are seeing those higher rates of poverty. Also, with the investment of the 2 pre-K counts programs, partnering with the BCIU, that's putting 32 students into pre-K counts every year. And also with the board's continuation of support for the intervention program. So as you recall, we had all of those interventionists funded by the ESSER dollars. With those grant funds going away, finding an opportunity to continue to support those roles is putting much needed intervention support in those lower grades where we are seeing those concerns to make sure that all of our students are getting that equitable experience and that we are putting, as much attention as possible to that. So all of our students, regardless of, their poverty level, do have that support. So again, thank you for that support in those areas.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is kind of my resounding talking point, whether it's community presentations or when we're back to school or with our new teachers. I always am complimentary and thankful for what this board has been able to invest in and still maintain that conservative budget approach. So thank you. Well said, Mr. Farina.
Comments, questions? Hearing none, make a roll call, please.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Reitner?
Yes.
So a couple items under superintendent report this evening. First is resignations, and we have the resignation of our certified school nurse, Amanda Kraus. She is moving to a different position outside of education. We do have the recognition later on in the personnel report for a hire of, if find it. If it's under C1B, Mrs. Leah Geringer, she is going to be coming to us as the replacement for that certified school nurse. She's coming from the Tamaqua School District, and we're excited to be having her join the team. Under B, change of status, we have Miss Mackenzie Kistler, who took on the middle school 8th grade learning support classroom as a contracted position, filling in for Mrs. Yanovich, who took a different position outside the school district. We have a change of status of Mrs. Vicki Miller, who's our school LPN. She's moved from the intermediate middle school. She's now working at the high school. And then we also have the recognition of Mr. Salzberg, who is picking up work at the intermediate school doing instrumental lessons. So he's still the band director at the high school, but also helping at the intermediate school, which is a really cool opportunity in terms of working with the younger kids and then seeing them making some of those interpersonal connections, but then also seeing that program grow until they get to the high school. So we're excited about to see how that goes this year. Under C, appointments, we have the appointment of Mr. Daniel Romberger. Mr. Romberger is here this evening. He comes to us from the Stroudsburg School District as the assistant principal there in the high school. He was the top candidate. We went through an interview process with 3 teachers. We had 3 school board members, 3 administrators, and vetted out through a series of different rounds of interviews. We had Mr. Romberger present what an initial faculty meeting would look like. We're really excited to have him be the lead candidate and the recommended candidate this evening. He comes to us with a ton of energy. He has a deep understanding of the MTSS process, which is a process we wrap around academic supports for students and understanding data and how do we use data, put groups together to support students to identify skills. And he did that as a teacher. He had teaching experience in the Reading School District as well as Lancaster, and then also did that as an administrator, putting a whole program together for a very large school district and high school. So he has those experiences from a curricular side, but also a very personal guy. Really excited to have him be connected with our kids, with our faculty, and so it is a great honor to be recommending him to the school board. He is going to be a great fit for this school district. So excited to be for that addition. I mentioned the school nurse already. We also have the connected to the learning support teacher earlier, Miss Mackenzie. This is the appointment of Miss Logan McAllister. She is filling in for the 3rd grade learning support long-term substitute position. So that's a long-term sub, but she's going to be basically backfilling for what Mackenzie was hired for originally. We have just a few additions to the athletic coach complement, and we're asking for approval on that tonight under 4A. Under leaves, we have a maternity leave, and that's going to be from November 7th to March 21st. So we're working on plans to support that during that transition. We also have under F1, granting tenure for 6 staff members that have successfully attained that tenure status through observations as well as time within the school district. And then we have item 2, which is to approve a host of different mentors to support the new positions throughout the school district. And finally, we have approved the establishment of a sick bank for an employee that is going to be out through the first part of the school year. And we also had a vacancy of a director of building grounds position from May 3rd until July 29th, when Mr. Molitors has joined us and has been doing a phenomenal job in that role. But Ms. Del Guerico and Mr. Mertz, the custodial supervisor, did a phenomenal job of picking up all the pieces, project managing, getting a ton of jobs up and running, doing the research, doing the bids, and monitoring those projects, as well as just the day-to-day operations of summer movement of parts to get the school clean, to get things moved, to manage all the projects, the nitty-gritty of all the projects. So there was a ton of moving parts. Both of those individuals, Mr. Mertz and Ms. Del Guerico, should be recognized and commended for their phenomenal efforts, countless hours that they put in above and beyond. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you to Ben, who's not here tonight, for making everything go so smoothly this summer. With that being said, that is the end of the personnel report.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, could I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mr. Wagaman,
Yes.
7 yeas, motion passes.
All right, is there any public comment? Yes.
I've been like, it's kind of morbid, but I've been like seeing stuff about like school shootings a lot lately, and it had me thinking about like the intruder drills that we do in school. And then I thought like we never like really discuss what to do like if it were during lunch or something, because I know in the high school it's like an open area and it's like right by the main entrance, and like I don't know what I would do. And then also in the high school gym, at least I don't remember about like here or anything, but the like announcements are very unclear, so I don't like. And then also I think last year a lot of the drills were during like third period, so like during like sixth period or something, I don't know like what to do, and I think we should try like to cover more class periods and like talk about like what to do if there was an intruder in like different scenarios with multiple different classes instead of just a couple.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I really appreciate that perspective of understanding how do you approach a situation when you're in a mass area like the cafeteria at the high school, and that's really close to the entrance. So if something happens, how are you going to react to that? Excellent comment. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with all the administrative team. Mr. Ostrowski is the safety coordinator for the school district and helps to coordinate those, but works with Ms. Kelly and Mr. Jinish as well as the middle school. Now Mr. Romberger to help coordinate those. And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and we'll make sure we address that.
Okay.
That's great advice. Thank you. Great suggestion. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
See, it wasn't that scary, was it? You did a great job.
Great job.
I'm glad you said something. That's really important.
Any additional board comment?